welcome everyone. We're very excited to have this event tonight. So just want to welcome you and let you know a little bit about our panelists here. Everyone comes from a little bit of a different background. We're going to let them introduce themselves. And we've got Tim, our moderator, here. Just want to tell you a little bit about MIMA as well. My name is Amber Graves. I'm the incoming president for MIMA as of last week. Thank you. And just to let you know, where are our board members? Anyone in here? Raise your hands or stand up. These are our board members. If anyone is interested in learning more about MIMA or volunteering, please seek them out after the panel and ask them questions. But yeah, MIMA is a great opportunity to get involved with the community. So ask them some more questions after. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the panel. I'm going to turn it over to Tim.
Thanks, Amber, and congrats and welcome to the club of current and former presidents of MIMA. It's awesome to see all of you here. I think the Twin Cities are amazing because people show up for events and things like that. And so hopefully we deliver or over-deliver on your expectations. We're going to talk about this crazy new world that we're in. It's been 3 years maybe since ChatGPT arrived and upset so many apple carts, including search, a thing that might have felt like it was becoming, a religion, and it's becoming codified, it was becoming institutional, and now change is here. And so we're going to talk about the many ways in which search is evolving and changing. We've got different opinions, so hopefully there'll be a little bit of healthy and maybe even entertaining and useful conflict for all of you. So, as Amber said, my name is Tim Brunelle. I'm a former president of the board and the least knowledgeable person on this panel tonight. So that's why I'm going to turn it over to Deborah, who's going to start. Just give us a high level of, from your perspective, where is search today here in November of 2025, and why should we care?
All right, so hi, my name's Deborah. I am an independent consultant. I've been working in search for 10 years, and the 10 years before that, I was working in publishing. And one of the things about where we are now with search and with AI, for me, it feels very natural to come out of the past 10 years of SEO, because I think a lot of us here in this market and here at this company and just kind of in this market in general have a more, I would say, holistic understanding of how search and brand work together. And I think that where we're at right now as far as search goes, we're seeing a lot of fragmentation, right? This is one of the big changes, is that Google is still obviously the most dominant player in the AI space, but that Google is now facing significant competition for search share from all these different companies, and not just for search share, but for how people are searching and where they're searching, what they're trying to look up, and what intents they're trying to solve for. I think Google has been very aware of search behavior for a long time. They've been working on natural language processing for a really long time. That's something that we were very aware of here about 10 years ago. It's just kind of optimizing for natural language processing that has come such a far way. So it's funny because 10 years ago, I think voice search came out, and we were all like, search is going to be transformed. Everyone's going to use their Amazon Echo for everything. And like now the Echo's kind of been demoted to like song playing machine for your kids. And but voice search is actually really good now with natural language processing and all these technologies that we are calling AI. But I think the other idea that I want to get to here is that search in and of itself is not a digital thing. People want to find information. People want to people are curious. They want to go deeper. They want to understand what they're spending money on. They want to understand what are their options for buying a product, for buying a service. And if we look at kind of, like I said, my background's in publishing, if we look at, hundreds and hundreds of years of publishing, there's some things that are consistent up until now, and one of those is that we as humans build structures to find information. We build libraries, card catalogs, the Dewey Decimal System, newspapers, books that have table of contents and indexes. And I think the thing that I see that works in indexes and tables of contents are also the things that work in SEO, AI optimization, whatever. I just always say optimizing for search and discovery. And those things that continue to work are the language, the words people use to find things, the structure, how you structure, how you structure a table of contents, how you structure a newspaper, and that design, as well as the news structure design. Oh yeah, and then having some element of code or some element of numbers to it. And I think if we kind of think of search as like a continuation of that, and a continuation of library science, which it is, it's part of information science, and it didn't just show up with Google. I think that is a broader way of thinking about where search is. And I just kind of want to also call back to my experience at this company in this market, working with clients, and at my other companies and with my other clients. It's that it's not about finding a keyword, putting it in a blog post a bunch of times, and then suddenly seeing your traffic go up. It's about asking the questions: what are my customers or clients looking for? What words are they using to find that? And how can I meet them where they're at? And whether that is Google or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever comes down the pike, it's about centering those questions and not, do I have as much traffic as last month, why not blame Google? So that's, yeah, I'll kick it over to Joel.
Good evening. My name's Joel. I work at the company, principal SEO. I'm trying to think earlier about how I describe some of my background, and I guess I would say I've been doing SEO since my hair was black. Deborah, one quick thing I wanted to jump off real quick is, I think it's just, I feel like SEO is in this place where I've been doing it so long, I feel like we're back to where we kind of were, right? I think when we started doing, you did content marketing, SEO, it was what Deborah was talking about. Who's your audience? What's their needs? And how do we fill their needs with the content that we create? I feel like in the middle we got lost with chasing keywords, and it was chasing the algorithm versus giving what the user wanted. I do think the next kind of piece is about measurement, right? And how are we measuring in this new landscape? One of the things that we want to talk a little bit first was around zero clicks. I'm sure everyone's heard about it. You show hands if you haven't.
Quick definition.
Okay, so
Joel definition.
Zero click search is kind of what it sounds like. It's people not clicking through to a website, and this kind of started maybe about 2014. Google rolled out something called a quick answer, and that quick answer was they were rolling out other things too, but the quick answer was essentially a result that would answer a direct question that the consumer had or user had. Typically that content was pulled from a website. Sometimes Google indexes would populate it as well. But as Google's search results have evolved, zero click has become more prominent. They are trying to make you stay in the search results. And the AI search is just an evolution of that, even now. So, and there was a question we were talking about is this, oh, I forget what it was now, sorry, I did right now. I wanted to make sure see the problem with being older is they don't remember everything. But so one of the questions you had for me was, is zero click a crisis or a correction? And I don't think it's either. I think it's just an evolution of search, and it's where we're at. I did want to talk a bit though about, so from zero click, I want to talk about measurement, because I think measurement is a key factor in doing SEO work, especially now. I think most organizations, I think we follow this, there's pretty like standard measurement framework that people use. Typically is some sort of visibility metrics like impressions or rank. We don't really use that as much anymore. And then like share of voice. Then you have like traffic or website metrics. So when somebody gets to your website from search, that would typically include your traffic metrics, maybe new users. And then you have your engagement metrics, so you have like conversions or bounce rates. It's a pretty standard like framework for SEO. Where AI comes into play is there's some new metrics that we were thinking about. The two simple ones are citations and mentions. And a citation is essentially it's a link to your website, but it's included in the AI generated content. Mentions are essentially brand mentions. They're being mentioned in there. I think one of the unfortunate things about where we're at right now is none of these AI search engines or tools they don't have like a Google Search Console. So we have this giant hole of data right now. Google does put their information in Google Search Console. However, they're not segmenting in a way, so you don't know if it came from AI mode or not. It's part of all of Google's data. But what this means is we are having now to use third-party tools to track this. And these tools there's 1,000 of them now. There's new ones coming up every day about how do you track your AI search. And that cost can be a few $100s a month, up to $10,000 a month. And it puts every organization in a different situation to be able to, how do you measure your visibility in these engines, and how do you then optimize towards getting your content more included. I think a lot of it, jumping off Deborah, it comes back to, are you, again, building relevant content for your audience? And I think we see with a lot of clients that are actively having a robust content strategy to meet those, to meet their audience. They're doing better in AI search than others. But I also feel like, and I'm not sure where to pass this off, but I feel like we're kind of at this interesting inflection point too of if you're not performing well in there, you're going to have a harder time getting included, and what's it going to take to actually get there. If you're an enterprise client who has thousands of web pages, you're more likely to be included in an AI search result. But if you are a startup and have 10 pages, it's going to be really challenging.
We'll turn it over to Jen.
Hi.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jen Jones, and I am the Geo Program Manager at Perrill. I've been in marketing for 26 years. About 20 of those have been in digital in some form or another, whether it's building websites or optimizing. Probably the last 6 or 7 years have been specifically SEO. Yeah. So that's been.
So talk a little bit about your perspective in terms of, let's say, where we were at 4 years ago, 3 years ago, right at the onset of ChatGPT arriving, when we didn't know if or how it was going to affect SEO, to where your mind is at today in terms of what you're advising clients in terms of the balance of how much of your brain power do you put towards solving for AI in a search perspective versus not, maintaining the consistent things you've always been doing.
Sure. So I was thinking as Joel was talking about the different types of measurements that we're embarking upon. For us at Perrill, one thing that hasn't changed for us is that we are all about the number of sales, the lead generation, the revenue number that our clients get, and so This is really just about reverse engineering back from that to figure out where those are coming from. They're coming in potentially from a different source than they were 3 years ago. The customer journey is very compressed if it's coming in off of an answer engine. And that zero-click piece of it, you know what, the experience is, I mean, there's owned experiences where people check out, people buy things off of your website versus non-owned where they're doing it in other places. I mean, they've been buying things off Amazon for a long time, right? So they're used to a non-owned experience, but this is gonna be a little bit different for them. I think for us, what we're looking at is we're making sure that we're able to see in Google Analytics where that traffic is coming from, which of the answer engines is bringing in that lead, and then turning it into a key event. So we're looking at visibility, but we're looking at it in a little bit of a different way as kind of a means to an end, rather than just, are we visible, are we not? Which of the prompts that people are showing up for are the most productive, which ones are gaining that revenue, which ones are generating those leads?
So when you talk a little bit about the technical side of it, you're looking at an admin dashboard. Your primary source of truth then is Google Analytics. Like Joel was talking about other tools and things like that. Help us understand kind of your day-to-day, like what does the interface look like for you in terms of how are you discerning, oh, this sale is the result of traditional search, or this sale was the result of Perplexity versus OpenAI versus, how are you seeing that? I know we're just talking, but give us a sense of what you see on a day-to-day basis.
Well, so my primary source of truth is when I first get on the phone, I get on a call with a customer and I ask them, how's business? You know, that's my primary source of truth. From there, we're gonna engineer back to say, you know, are you meeting your goals? How close are we to those goals? Are those goals shifting? And looking at where we're at in terms of how near or far we are from meeting that goal. So it starts on the client end, but then from there, we're looking at a couple of different tools. We've also built some stuff that's proprietary that we're using in-house because we've tested out a number of the different visibility tools that are out there, and we've figured out exactly what we think is gonna meet our needs. So we've been demoing some of that stuff. But I think that, you know, Google Analytics has always been our source of truth for a lot of things. I think that we're able to break down exactly where that traffic is coming from and isolating the channel sources and things. So we're just, as long as we keep up with that, I feel like we're doing a good job of understanding that. So what I look at, what's important to me when it's generating what the client wants it to, is I'm looking at which answer engine which URL it came in on, whether or not a key event took place, and whether or not revenue was generated. So I'm really looking at the very tail end and then going back from there to figure out what should be the tactics.
And are you seeing any, with traditional search, you knew the keyword that the customer was using, you know, and you knew versus with generative AI, there may be an entire prompt, right? And to what degree are you seeing into what the actual prompt is? And how is that affecting the way that you're advising clients from a structure and a taxonomy and a content perspective?
Yeah, so we are actually going all the way to the prompt, figuring out which prompts are making an impact for clients in terms of what's generating revenue, what's generating leads. You know, some of the clients that come to us at the beginning, I mean, for most of them, we're doing SEO and GEO, because I know that there's a bit of a debate around, is GEO really just SEO, you know, plus. The thing is, some of it is just, I do say that good GEO is also good SEO, but the thing is, there's a lot of folks out there that aren't doing the SEO pieces of it, okay? So, is it just SEO or like enhanced SEO? Yeah, but there's plenty of people out there not without schema on their website, right? Without some of the things that we thought might be important, then weren't as important as keywords, and now they're back to being important because machines need to be able to read the content. So I think that the difference is we know what's at stake going forward.
Yeah, so quickly, for the folks in the room, including you, what does the word schema mean in this
Oh,
context?
sorry, structured data. So it's a markdown language or a JSON file that just basically explains it in a language that machines can understand. It's a piece of code that goes on the back end of your site. So it kind of guides them and tells them, okay, this is what this page is about, this is what it's for, this is what it'll be helpful for in terms of answering certain types of questions.
Great, now you used the term answer engine, and I think we should turn it over to the guy that, did you invent the term answer engine, or you at least trademarked it?
We have the trademark on it. We
Yeah.
used it, we
Of
trademarked
course.
it like 5 years ago.
Yeah, so Scott Litman, if you don't know, is a guy who sees things in the future, trademarks them, and then, have you monetized that yet, though?
You know, we have 6 patents in AI, which my name's on them along with other co-inventors, and we have the trademark and answer engine. The problem is the people that are trampling on the trademark are companies the size of Google, Apple, Perplexity, others with like billions and billions and billions they can throw at it. So
Yeah,
it's
hard to sue them.
hard to defend.
Yeah, so Scott, talk a little bit about your perspective in terms of, I mean, you're one of our long-term internet, I like to say internet grandpa, right? And grandpa internet. Me too, though, right? We've been there and done that. We were talking about being in companies that replaced manual art with digital art and things like that. So you've been around and you've seen the transitions. Talk a little bit about what we're just getting at here, which is there are foundational truths in terms of data and structure that are now realizing, like, hey, all that content that you built a long time ago, now all of a sudden it matters.
Yeah. So I like to say that I'm a veteran entrepreneur.
There we go.
And so for those that don't know me, I'm a 5-time founder as well as founding the Minnesota Cup. And the last venture of the 5, Lucy, we created about 9 years ago. And it was really all about how AI plays a role of information retrieval within an enterprise. And while the expertise to my right is all around how to use these tools to find information in the public domain and how to be found. I've had a different experience, which is inside of a company, there's information that is unique to that business. So like Pepsi has been a customer for 6 years. We have 10,000 users on our platform at Pepsi. They find market research, they find voice of customer, they find all the studies, all the past marketing collateral, all the decks that anybody ever made anywhere in the world. We have 800 SharePoints we're connected to, as well as all their vendors, the Black Swans, the Zappies, the Mintels, the Euromonitors, the eMarketers, Global Data, all of that. But the challenge of enterprise is very different than the public domain. In the public domain, most content, if you work in the hands of experts like these, is screaming to be found. It's begging to be found. It's describing itself. There's schemas to a website to navigate it. There is increasingly you're finding people that are stuffing content like facts at the bottom of the page to try to answer the questions of whatever somebody's going to ask through an LLM. But in the enterprise, we have PowerPoints, we have PDFs, we have Word documents, we have Excel. We have things that are half-baked. We have things that are presentations that only make sense when you combine the words on the slide with the content between somebody's ears that they're going to say while they give the presentation. And we still have to figure out how to find the right slide, how to find the right paragraph within a 100-page PDF or Word document. And nobody ever creates content with the idea that I'm making it to be found. And so we have been working with some of the world's biggest brands, along with Pepsi, American Express, Kraft, Kroger's, Walmart, and many others, with how to help them make their knowledge accessible and usable, understanding the intent and utterances that are coming from the user to find what is most relevant in the enterprise. And it is a difficult challenge. The content is in many formats, and while I said, Word, PowerPoint, PDF, Excel, it also can be text files. It can be text inside of a JPEG or TIFF. It can be audio or video. The amount of content inside of videos that are focus groups or town halls is immensely valuable, but rarely searched and rarely reused.
Yeah.
So anyways, a big part of what I've worked on for the last nearly decade is how AI helps with data discovery within large enterprises. It is getting better and better from a tech standpoint, but there's a quote, and I wish I could take credit for it. I heard another founder say this, which is that when good AI meets bad data, the bad data always wins, and the enterprise is loaded with bad data.
And one of the things, actually, so I learned about Lucy a few years ago. Scott spoke at an event that I hosted, and it was like my first time understanding enterprise search. But since then, I've actually learned, there's a lot about searching. I've built intranets for large companies. So there's a lot about search within intranets, and then making that actually discoverable. And I think for those of you working on search who are looking for resources to understand how to structure content to be readable, one of the best resources, the people you can follow, are the technical writers and the content engineers who work on structuring internal documents for search, because they have often been doing far more advanced things than folks who are just writing a bunch of blog posts and showing up on Google. Because the technical structure, the schemas, all those things that go behind those documents actually allow them to be more readable when AI can't actually read it. And that's one of the things I've learned, is just like follow the technical writers. They know their stuff.
One of our first clients with Lucy was Honeywell.
Yes.
And we worked with the group of engineers in aerospace, which was not anything that we intended to work on. And they're like, our content's really hard, can you find it? It was the easiest content to find because it was created by those, it was super structured, it was super easy to read.
Yeah, and they'll have fights about what kind of structured docs are better, and that's also really awesome. But learning from them, you start to understand the difference between things like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which is what most AI search engines use, and knowledge graphs, which are more like fact engines, which Google uses, but most of the AI companies don't really have full knowledge graphs set up in the way that Google does. But yeah, it's learning from those technical writers is really important. I think the other important thing to remember is that, like, Google search typing in a keyword, we've all gotten very used to that. And some of us will probably still search that exact same way until we're ready to kick the bucket. We're typing in a keyword isn't actually all that different from using the keyword in a sentence, and that people's language, the language we use to describe things, doesn't actually change all that much over time. We'll put more words around the keyword, it'll be structured differently, but what the goal of natural language processing and the goal of this type of search is to understand what the user means based on the language they're using. So us as marketers and as people trying to optimize information to be found, it's really the key has always been understand how people think about your product. One of the things here, one of the stories that Nita used to tell was there was a client that was selling something called foaming bath gel, and they did just a little bit of keyword research and found out that most people use the phrase bubble bath, not foaming bath gel. And that's how, and then you optimize for bubble bath. That kind of core voice of customer research, also combined with larger data, is still going to give you more clues to the nouns and verbs that will be used in natural language processing than just by looking at a list of generated keywords from clickstream data. So it's really important to think about how keyword search is an old thing. Keyword search is part of, again, it's library science. It's something that people were writing about in the 70s. And that language, although language kind of changes meaning over time, at the same time, we still use, a shoe is a shoe, pants are pants. Those words aren't going to change. So I think that's something that's really critical.
So trying to be a little bit more pragmatic, if those of us in the room have been, we went through the process of learning how to organize content for an algorithmic search engine, and now we're in an age where, in addition to that, I also have to think about the same body of information in the structure of my website for LLMs and natural language processing. Give us some tips in terms of, what would you do tomorrow if you have not optimized your website, or you're beginning the process of thinking about how do I organize for large language models versus what we've been doing for traditional search? Like, what are the best practices that you would advise folks to follow tomorrow morning?
Oh, I can start.
Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting. I'm just gonna go back to the thought we talked about earlier, is understanding who your audience is and their needs. I think we've seen this evolution of, well, I'll connect it out here, but going back to something else I was thinking about earlier, PDFs. How often have we seen like PDFs rank well in search, but your content doesn't, right? And it's really around the content that's in the PDF has all the information that the user wants. That's why we see that maybe show up more than your equivalent web page. Also, Google worked with, at least in Google search, Google worked with Adobe to be able to convert PDFs into HTML so that they can process those like HTML pages. But going back to your question, I don't remember exactly what it was about AI.
What would you do tomorrow?
Well, some of the evolution that we still see websites that don't have enough content, and we also see some pages that are super long. And from my perspective, is a lot of these large language models are still kind of in the infancy of trying to really understand not so much the processing the query, but align it to sometimes always the content that you may have on your web page. So we're looking at more like how do we break up some larger pieces of content. We're making sure that we understand what those questions are up front. We're ensuring that the content answers those. We've done some pretty straightforward things like leading with answering the question. Understand what that question is and lead with it and answering it directly. We used to, a while ago, I would talk about you would need to answer a question directly or indirectly. And I think there was a moment in AI where you needed to be more direct. But I think as they've even got more sophisticated, that's evolved too. And sometimes it's not obvious of the things you're optimizing for. I'm trying to think back, there was an example last week where we were including a phrase in a piece of content. It wasn't to align directly to the question, but it was to give the engine the idea that this content, so I remember what it is. We were including the locations of where certain pharmacies were located. What we realized was it wasn't to try and get somebody to look at that directly, but it was to try and help inform the LLM that you can get service through different locations, and this content could help facilitate that.
So I have a few kind of standard lines on this, on what I would do tomorrow. If I were just starting out, you are so lucky, because structuring content for AI is actually a lot different than just structuring a website or just any content for a business. If you know that you're just starting out, start researching how to structure content for AI. More in your business, I would say in biz ops generally, but also just understand how you can meet the needs of users on your actual website. because you have to build that authority, right? To get in the training data, you have to understand how to build authority with your content, and that's by providing value that no other company can provide, and having a unique point of view that no other company can provide. But you also have to have those foundational facts, and you have to know what your facts are. What are the facts that you want people to know about your business? Make sure that those are included on your website. I think that's one really big thing. The second is robots read text, they don't read subtext. And that is really important as you're structuring your content. You don't need to give every single paragraph its own silly subheading anymore, which is wonderful about natural language processing. But what you do need to do is make sure those headings are descriptive of what is actually on the page. My current client right now, I love them. We had an instance where there's a lot of content explaining a business concept, but the headings were a metaphor. And I'm going to use this sample. The headings were all about, what if you buy a puppy? And it was a metaphor that started in the opening paragraph, and but the content itself was not about buying a puppy, but the headlines all were. And so for my clients, I understand that this is a way of storytelling, way of narrative to build trust with humans by using a common metaphor. However, the robots are not going to understand that this is not about puppies if all the headings are about puppies and all the content is not about puppies. So text, not subtext. And then the other biggest thing is if you are still putting all of your content in a blog and in just kind of all your newest content in a blog, and you're not using the structure of your website to organize that content, maybe rethink that. Information architecture and how websites are laid out, the words you're using in your menus, and how people can find things, those are very, very linked to how LLMs understand and process content. You'll hear how LLMs build relationships between words. They see the words in your menu and they understand that has something to do with the content on the page. And that's just how language processing works. But it's about understanding, do you understand what the words in your menu mean? Do your users understand what they mean? Do they relate to your business? And don't go keyword stuffing them, because that's a bad idea. But actually look at your brand architecture, your ontology, understanding the language again that you are using consistently, that you can use on your website, in your social media, in all your PR, that might lead back to your content. So having that structured vocabulary that is embedded in all the brand content that you produce.
My goodness, so many good ideas. Yeah. Well, I'm going to add to that, but it's probably going to be a bit shorter, and we'll see about sweeter. So one of the things that I want to mention, and listening to Joel and then listening, is because I was thinking and listening at the same time, right? Is that to simplify this, to boil it down really, really very much so, is the difference is context, right? So pants is pants, I agree with you, but how do I make my pants fit better, and where do I buy blue pants are two totally different ideas, and the difference is the context. So what LLMs are really trying to do, what answer engines, sorry about that, stole your line. Answer engines are really trying to provide an answer that is relevant and helpful, and provides the correct context, right, for the information. So when it comes to your website, actually we wrote a blog post about this, Perrill.com, 10 things you should do to get your website ready for LLMs. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm going to recommend is very much so all that SEO that you've been ignoring, that seemed like I can get to that eventually. Get to that now, because you're going to have to do all of that in order to make progress toward AI visibility. So if I had one thing top of mind that you should do is do all the SEO things that you haven't been doing.
Give us an example.
An example? Okay, so something that comes up for us, be surprised, but something so simple. Your name, address, and phone number, okay? I'm not making it up. Like, I have had this conversation with clients before. Your name needs to be exactly the same on your website as it is inside your Google business profile, as it is on a bunch of other places, as it is on your about page, as it is on a number of directories, what have you. You'd be surprised, especially when small businesses grow, or they merge with something else, or they rename, how many different names end up being out there. And that ends up, that's one of the first questions we'll ask someone as a new client if we see it, a number of different ones, and you'd be surprised how many times we'll say, what is the exact right name of your business? And they'll say, that's a good question. So that's the kind of thing that it seems like an oversimplification, and I guess it's a really easy thing to take a look at, but for some people it's harder to get to that than others. And I'd solve for that. Yeah.
Yeah, jump in. Okay.
I think everything that's been talked about are going back to a lot of foundational SEO tactics that have been recommended for 15 years. And to your point, like understanding what those are and executing those. You still think there are some like technical factors to consider. Like can these LLM engines crawl your website? I mean, there has been an idea to block them because you want to protect your content. When that's just going to really hurt you in the long run, especially as I think more and more these search engines or LLM engines are going to transition to using AI more for as the basis for their at least traditional search engines will use AI for their search engines, and so if you're preventing it from being found, that's one thing you want to really watch for, and even bring that up with your organization that they are deciding to do that, because that can have just super negative implications.
Scott, do you have any? What would you do tomorrow?
Well, the first thing is I'd say that the feedback that you guys are giving is fantastic. The cool thing is that everything you do to enhance your discoverability via AI is going to enhance your search stats. The other thing I'd say is if you are guiding a business, if you own a business, if you're leading a business, don't panic. Only a trivial amount of traffic is actually coming from the LLMs. The LLMs are actually pretty terrible at sending people out. If you look at SimilarWeb and the kind of data, the referral traffic is terrible. Businesses are getting maybe 5% of their traffic in general and leads that are coming from the LLMs. So you have time to fix it. The other thing is that the LLMs do a pretty decent job of citation, but nobody uses it. I shouldn't say nobody, rarely does. And I always think that, as a user, you have to be really careful to do fact checking. There's a lot of danger at blindly trusting these things. And as much as the LLMs get their authority from Google, users are starting to treat the LLMs as if they have authority, and they so often don't. It doesn't mean that there isn't tons of great data and tons of great answers, but there are a lot of hallucinations. They really are not improving that way, and there can be very dangerous and bad outcomes by blindly trusting what is in the LLM. So follow the links, even though most people do not.
And I was going to add, if your business is actually based on selling ads and on intellectual property, just kind of going off of what Joel was saying, if your business is selling original intellectual property, you have some other things to consider than what we're saying. I think that's down the road, but I think if you're doing standard marketing, being found and making sure, based on what Jen was saying, making sure that your business name is the H1 on your website, you would be so surprised at how many awesome, I was working with an AI first business, and I was like, your product and business name are not on your homepage. Can we please fix that? And it's kind of funny, so.
Happens to you too.
Yeah.
We must have questions.
Yes.
Indeed, you've got them.
So we've got just a few minutes for questions. What we'd like to do, we've got slips of paper on the tables. If you want to write down your question. I was gonna say, it'll give me a little time to invite our host up, Heather. If you wanna write down your questions, we'll come around and gather them, bring them up. And I would just like to invite Heather, our sponsor, to say a few words. Thank you so much for hosting us in your space.
Yeah, if you wanna jot down questions, we'll come and grab them.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you have a question, we'll grab it from you.
Thank you, you guys. It's always so interesting to hear different perspectives, and also thank you, all of you, for coming out tonight, parking in the dark, coming out here through the elevator, and actually getting here. I am always reminded when I come to these events how important it is just to come out and see other faces and like have human conversations speaking about AI. I think that's probably one of the most important pieces. But either way, I'm Heather Riss-Murphy. I have the pleasure of leading the very smart teams and people that are doing the SEO work here at Collective Measures. And we are thrilled that you're here. So thanks for being part of it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. What questions do we have? Some are written down. Yeah, what's up?
How long until, OpenAI and all the others have like an actual ad product and build out a sales team to sell that? Because right now we're kind of focusing on the enterprise software sales, but it's only a matter of time before they get paid monetization for the platform, right?
Scott, that's, I think, your question.
I'll just say inevitable.
Yeah.
How soon would you guess?
Is soon, well, so first of all, the, Google obviously is already there, and Google is an AI they've all been using for over 20 years. I was just reading this morning that OpenAI is preparing for exactly that, so whether it's 3 months, 6 months, I mean, it's near term, and pretty much it'll drive the industry.
Yeah, and I saw that their publisher, measurement API has been configured. So they're planning to measure click-through rates and mentions and things like that, but it's not there yet. Soon.
And they have unlimited resources, so they are exploring every avenue.
As soon as they possibly can.
Right.
Right? Here's a question. What else should we know about schema markup? And where should I look to learn more about how to do schema markup?
That one?
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about this earlier, but there's two pieces I think that are important for AI. It's structured data and then also schema markup. Schema markup is a way to mark up certain types of formats like an address, right? But the structured data itself is also important. So how you are structuring your content on a web page, maybe like a product page, you want to be consistent with that so these engines can understand that. So there's schema.org that has thousands of different schema types. I think there's some pretty standard ones that people use, but like address or company information, product schema. I think you want to start looking at other types, like if you have a lot of tables on your website for data, you want to think about using table schema. Again, more things that we can help the engines understand that this is what the data is, and then as Deborah pointed out earlier, somehow making sure that the content is also helping that understand what it is. So it might be a well-optimized heading tag or a short description so they can also get that context between those two things.
So just part of what I'm hearing you saying is text, not subtext. Machines don't understand metaphors. So the schema is essentially saying help the machines understand what the machines are looking at.
Right. Yes.
Can I just one really quick thing. Also, the large language models are in the infancy of reading text. So a lot of websites are built heavily with JavaScript, and they can't read content that's generated through JavaScript. So Google is at a point where you know, and it's not AI mode, but Google search results processes all pages through a browser. So they're able to process that JavaScript unless it's hidden behind some action, but the large language models can't. So one of the other technical things is looking for, if you have tabbed content, right, is that visible in the raw HTML? There's a lot of other factors there as well you should be looking
Yeah, I am working on a large website redesign that involves a lot of JavaScript, and there's a lot of, we're definitely looking at how can this be read not just by the main LLMs, but also agentic, which are like the small, tiny, single-use LLMs. What I was going to say about schema is a good way to learn about schema is to ask AI about schema and how you would structure a schema markup. Schema.org for me has always been very incomprehensible. I have no idea what's going on there. But if you I would go into Claude and say, okay, I'd like to structure this for schema. It's kind of like regular expressions. It can do those kind of math languagey things a little better, and it can definitely explain it to you in a way that is less technical and more natural language.
Another question for you.
So we talked about content and schema, but what about offsite, like link building, Reddit, other avenues that content marketers can explore to enhance the appeal that their content or their brand might have for an outbound?
I think one of the interesting aspects of this evolution, we also used to talk about backlinks being an important ranking factor, and I think what has changed is really around mentions. That link itself isn't as important as a mention is. So, doing traditional PR and getting word out about your products and services is what really needs to be done in order to help, I guess, the entire web understand your visibility and some of your authority as well.
Does that connect to social?
Sure. Yeah.
Expand, if you would.
Well, it's the web, right? It's what can be crawled by engines. So maybe not all social. I think like Facebook still isn't fully crawlable.
Who uses Facebook?
I don't know. I'm just using one. It's true. But there's only one thing that's not crawlable. Right? So yes, I think social is in the space we're in, people are searching in all these different places. Right? Social is key, right? A lot of people start searching in social. I was at Disney World a few years ago, and my niece used TikTok to look for what ride had the shortest lines. Her whole trip was planned around using TikTok. So people are using search in social engines. So we're optimizing there as well for the same things. So you should be pushing your brand out where it makes sense in social too.
Yep, I'm gonna add to that. So we do research into where are answer engines pulling their information from, and absolutely offsite matters, because if you look at the top 5 sources, aside from your own website, it's gonna be Wikipedia, Quora, Reddit, YouTube, Medium, and if you're not looking to impact those things, you're only got like half the equation, right? So if you're not looking at how you can be a thought leader in Reddit, if you don't have a Wikipedia page, if your YouTube channel has 300 videos on it and none of them are really optimized, that's a problem. That's an area. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity. But it absolutely matters, and it's more in your control than you think. Yeah.
I actually have a follow-up question on that.
So when you talk about Reddit, YouTube, all of those other sort of non-typical sources that will influence an LLM, what tools are you using to track those types of search metrics?
So I've been tracking brand mentions for a long time. And brand mention software is not new. there's Meltwater, there's, I use Brand 24, I'm a huge Brand 24 fan. There's a lot of different tools that you can use to track mentions, and you track the mentions correlation to your business performance through your website and the amount of mentions you have and how that correlates. That is a good metric to have.
How does it relate to AI?
As far as brand mentions relating to AI, I mean, whether an AI is mentioning you or not is not something you can see right now. So this is just a proxy for that. But like all these measurement experiments are a proxy, right? You do something and you see, okay, that had kind of an impact on this social channel, that had a huge impact over here, but how did it impact my overall business performance? And you watch how those brand mention correlations change over time. Does it bring more AI traffic? Does it bring more just straight business? And so it's less about the AI itself and more about the brand ecosystem and how it's mentioned.
So we're getting close to the end here. We talked about doing kind of a 12 months out. Talk about what if you had to make a bet in terms of where we're at now. You know, I mean, who knows, right? Gemini just launched, right? And now you have a search engine that you can give it a video and it will tell you what's in the video, right? Like that's a fairly new thing. So that to me is quite fascinating, right? So talk to us about where you see in the next 12 months. What are you either worried about, or where are you going to invest more of your free time in terms of trying to explore and extract value as it relates to search and AI? Let's start with Scott.
I'll take it more from just the AI side of it, which is there's a lot of talk today about how we're in a bubble, people comparing the current state of AI to .com and things like that. And there's kind of two parts to the AI market. There's the frontier technology, sort of the foundational tech. The foundational tech isn't going anywhere. It is just going to grow faster. It's going to get bigger. It is feeding on itself, and it's unbelievable to see how quickly it's evolving. So the foundational, like OpenAI, Anthropic, X.AI, Google, even the infrastructure companies that support them, like Oracle, are just, I'm not going to say buy their stock, but they are going to become immensely larger through this. There is also a tier of companies that are trying to put AI in everything, and they don't have their own algorithms. They're not creating anything. They can be easily copied. And that side of it, a lot of dumb money has followed, and that's not going to be a very successful part of the marketplace in many cases. So technology is going to continue to proceed at a ridiculous pace, but there's only so much that's actually true AI, and the true AI stuff is winning and will continue to do so.
So for me, it's two things. On the more macro level, in terms of how is it impacting America, the United States, or how is it impacting society, for me, you're going to see a lot more in 2026 about the critical needs around energy policy and around generating more electricity, because that is a big, big, big problem that needs to be solved. On the micro level, in terms of stuff that's impacting our day-to-day work, I see one of two things. I'm going to go rolling into Q1, big time optimizing for e-commerce inside answer engines. But also I would expect that at some point we get some numbers, some estimated volumes around some of these prompts.
When you talk about the e-commerce thing specifically, give us an example of a specific tactic you might.
Mm-hmm. So I know I'm all about the schema, but the page level product schema and all those images that don't have image object around them or video object at back end, that's what we're going to tackle first.
So, all descriptions and.
Yeah, and actually I think it depends on which e-com system you're using. For us, for WooCommerce, for our clients, we've been building out plugins. So it's just, it's how much of this are you going to do by hand and how much of this are you going to automate and in which systems.
I'm pretty sure that a year from now, I don't actually see one of the big things right now that we haven't talked about is consumer sentiment around AI, which is much, much, much lower than with previous technologies. And I think we're going to continue to see that kind of pushback as people start to understand the technologies behind AI. It's still going to be there, and we can't ignore people who are saying, I don't like this isn't for me. I think that we all have to accept that, like, in a year, it probably won't be all that much different. In 10 years, it'll probably pretty different. But in the short term, I think and hope that information architect will become a cool job again. And because, yeah, structure.
I think I'll start mine with a question. If you went and searched on Google today and you didn't know the back end, would you notice if it was an LLM that generated the response, or an AI search or engine, or it's traditional search results? And I think the user wouldn't know that. I think we're starting to see evidence of this. OpenAI just announced a few weeks ago that they are launching their own browser, and it's called Atlas, right? And they're using ChatGPT as a primary engine behind that. Google just announced Gemini 3, and AI mode is it's already part of that. So I think they're already looking at using that as a primary engine for AI mode. My big thought is, like, when does Google make that switch over? Right now they have 3 different search engines, I guess, that they're managing, and I can't see them maintaining that for an extended period of time. So I think we could see a Google switching out to more of a using AI as their primary engine.
Do we have any more questions?
Thank you all so much for coming out. You're going to be hanging out. If you have a one-to-one question you want to ask, our panel will be here. Come on up and ask those questions. But thank you so much for coming out to this new event, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you to our wonderful host, Collective Measures. Keep going for them. And as I said, if you have questions about MIMA or want to talk about getting involved, volunteering, becoming a part of the board, find one of us, and happy to chat more. Thanks for coming.